Captain, we have them! We've established Transporter Lock, the Star Trek podcast. Join Ken and Sabriel each week as they explore strange new episodes, seek out new plots and new characters, and boldly go where no podcast has gone before.
Hello and welcome to Transporter Lock. We've got the cobwebs gone, we've got the black squares over the back panel, and 70% for the win. Woo! I am Captain Sabriel Maston, and as always, I am joined by my chief engineer. Want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Captain Sabriel. This is Chief Engineer Ken Gagney. I'm so excited to be back on the air on Transporter Lock with you. The last time we recorded an episode was November 5th, and today, as we're recording, is April 6th. So it has been like 5 months since we've talked, almost half a year.
We've been on a 5-month first contact day bender.
It's true.
At the dinner party that floats around a building, taking all the resources from planets. Oh, Hitchhiker's Guide reference.
Oh, okay. I wasn't quite clear on that one.
I know I'm already derailing us. We got 2 episodes to talk about, but we had a lot of things happening in Star Trek lately too, or that we're doing.
I thought we might use these first few minutes to talk about all the Star Trek stuff you and I have been up to in the last 5 months in one day.
I did not have Paramount Plus going, so I was not watching Star Trek on there unless I was watching it in the scrupulous means of been watching Star Trek Discovery Season 2 with someone, their first viewing of it, and they seem entertained.
Do they like Captain Pike?
Yes, that was the reason, because they like Strange New Worlds. They had heard Captain Pike's Discovery, but they thought it was an episode or 2. I'm like, oh no, that's the entire season. Okay, I'll give it a shot. Because they had tried Disco Season 1 and was kind of like, this isn't for me. And so far they seem to be enjoying Season 2. I said it's anti-AI, and that seemed to be an enticement too. So
I hadn't thought of that particular sales angle. That's a good point.
So like I think we just finished episode 6 or 6. Arium is about to turn evil. I know episode's coming up.
Spoiler.
If it's past 2 weeks, sorry. You haven't watched. You didn't know that by now. You weren't trying to watch it.
Yes, this is definitely a spoiler cast. We just saw the premiere of Star Trek Discovery. We will be talking about that after we finish catching up on the last 5 months. So if you haven't seen Discovery yet, now's the time to listen to us talk about the last 5 months and then stop listening.
What's something you did last little while about Star Trek?
Well, there are a couple of Star Trek short films I've seen. And by Star Trek short films, I mean films by Star Trek alumni. One is called Type 1. It's actually something I backed on Kickstarter. And it was by Noah Averback Katz, who was on Discovery as an Andorian and is also known as the spouse of Mary Weissman, who plays Tilly. They actually got divorced last year, but when they were still married, they ran a Kickstarter and shot a film called Type 1, and it stars just the 2 of them. They are the only 2 actors and characters in the short, and it's set in a dystopian future where he is diabetic, and with the collapse of civilization, where do you get your insulin? So the movie is about that. They're basically in a forest. It's a very simple set, and they're traveling to where they heard is a stockpile of insulin. And they're talking about what they're going to do if they find it, if they don't find it, etc.
Fascinating. I had never heard of this at all.
It was a very short film, completely indie. I liked it. Not so great, in my opinion, was another film called The Assassin's Apprentice 2. Have you heard of the first one?
I never heard of either.
No, I backed this on Kickstarter as well. The original one, which I haven't seen, had a bunch of Star Trek alumni, including Robert Picardo, the Doctor from Voyager, Marina Sirtis, Deanna Troi, Armin Shimmerman, Quark, Gary Graham, the Vulcan Soval, Tracy Coco, who played a bunch of extras on TNG and elsewhere, and Sean Kenny, who played Captain Pike on the original series when he was in the wheelchair. So I didn't see the first one. The sequel had a lot of the same cast. I didn't see Robert Picardo or Marina Sirtis. And I think I saw Armin Shimmerman. I would not have recognized Tracy Coco or Sean Kenny, but it definitely had Gary Graham. This short film was, you've seen the Reese Witherspoon movie Legally Blonde.
Yeah. The bend and snap works every time.
But imagine that, but instead of being a lawyer, she's trying to be an assassin. Yeah, it wasn't great, this movie. But it did have Gary Graham, and that may have actually been one of his last performances because on January 22nd of this year, he passed away at the age of 73.
It's yep. I loved his characters. He was not a good person.
And you didn't know that until I ruined it for you.
Yep.
Yeah, he had his political views, as evidenced from his Twitter account, were not consistent with the ethos portrayed in most Star Trek and Starfleet shows.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. And they were even probably a little extreme even for his political party.
Yeah, like I don't know if he went around kicking puppies, but he is not somebody I would want to engage in a political debate with.
Yes.
Yeah.
You just reminded me of something in that. I remembered, and you can finish. But if you had any more to say,
That's all I had to say about that short film.
cool. Before I forget, then, the Delta Flyers podcast, the
Yeah.
show about Star Trek Voyager. They're done with Voyager, and now they're doing Deep Space Nine with Terry Farrell and Armin Shimmerman popping in to episodes to talk about DS9.
Oh, that's
And
great.
that's been really entertaining. It's fun. Like they're trying to remember even further back than Robbie and Garrett. So they're trying to remember even further back and talk about their experiences.
Yeah.
And they're just like halfway through season 1. They got delayed because of the strike, but it's been fascinating to hear them share. And Terry Farrell is such a treasure.
I love her so much. I saw the self-congratulatory documentary What We Left Behind, and I liked the film, but I don't really feel like I got a resolution as to why her character was written off. Like they talked about it, but I don't really feel like there was here's after all these years the reason why. Maybe I missed it. I don't know.
Because Rick Berman was a jerk, and they're like, "No, Terry, you can't do other. Or you can't if you want to do other projects, you can't come back to Star Trek. See you later."
That was it.
They were just being chauvinist jerks.
I mean, I know she went on to do Becker, but was she wanting to do Becker and Deep Space Nine? They made her
She was
choose.
hoping to. She was hoping to just try other projects, and they're like, "Nope." So she knew the show was coming to an end. Like they all did, and she wanted to try some things, try settling things out, and they're like, "Nope, screw you."
Yeah, she was planning for the future of her career after 7 seasons.
And also because you mentioned Mary Weissman, and she is also starting doing a Kickstarter thing for a show about Star Trek filming locations, I think, and makeup.
Oh, okay.
So I don't remember any details beyond that, and I even have maybe 50% correct on the topics, but
So going back to the short films, we mentioned Gary Graham, and he passed away. Unfortunately, it's only April, and he's not the only Star Trek actor to pass away this year. We also lost Kenneth Mitchell.
oh yes.
He was a Klingon in season 1 of Discovery. He was in season 3 of Discovery. I forget the character's name, but he was sort of like in a floating wheelchair working for the Emerald Chain, although he was sympathetic to Starfleet. And he also wrote the foreword for a Star Trek book that we had the author on the show to talk about. That was Rob Perlman. He was talking about the book Starfleet Is, which came out 3 years ago, and Kenneth Mitchell wrote the foreword for that.
Aurelio.
Right. Thank you. That was the character's name in season 3. He also was the inspiration. I think there was a USS Mitchell in Strange New Worlds, or no, not in Strange New Worlds. I think in Discovery, and there was an Ensign Mitchell on Strange New Worlds. And I think those were both inspired by him. Unfortunately, he had ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which is similar to multiple sclerosis, which my mother has, except ALS is fatal. And people usually only live for 5 to 10 years after diagnosis, Stephen Hawking being a rare exception. I really liked what I knew of him as an actor and as a character, as a person. He also was in Captain Marvel.
Oh, really?
In a flashback scene, he played Carol Danvers' father.
That's right. I forgot all about that.
I just found out today. So he is in the MCU.
This is like me finding out. I shouldn't say I forgot about that. I can picture that now. It's more accurate. Because I just found out Thor was in Star Trek 2009 before anyone knew him as Thor.
Yes.
I was like, oh my God, that is him.
I think that's one of the reasons why a new Star Trek movie featuring him, which they talked about for a while, was so hard to do because he became Thor. A little bit more in demand now. And one more Star Trek thing worth noting is the old CD game, live motion video, CD-ROM game, Star Trek Borg from 1996 has been abandonware for many years. You haven't been able to play it pretty much anywhere, but somebody imported the video in the game and they upscaled it to high res, high def, and they put it online at borgremastered.com. And now you can play this game online.
Forgot all about that. You told me about it. Forgot entirely. It's awesome.
You played it?
Do that. No, I should do that.
Oh, Sabriel, I was hoping you would play it. It's fine that you didn't, but I had never played this before. I remember when it came out in 1996, not that I played it, but I went to E3 1996
Uh-huh.
and John Delancey was there promoting it. And I got his autograph on something. And I think it was a flyer for this game. I don't know if I still have that flyer, but that's the only time I've met John Delancey. And this game, it's live motion video. So you're like, it's a first person perspective. You're this ensign who like you're trying to save this ship from the Borg and you're navigating the ship and you can see Q and he's talking to you and nobody else can see Q. It's like a Ghost of Christmas Past kind of thing. And he puts various puzzles in front of you like which should you shoot? The person, the computer, or the Borg? Point your phaser at one and click to shoot. And it's like Dragon's Lair. It's a branching path. You see what happens. Some of the puzzles are completely inscrutable. There's an online guide that's very short. Like, just do these things and the game will be done. You're over. But one of the things I love about this game is how surprisingly low budget it is.
Uh-huh.
So you're on the bridge of this starship in the era of Next Generation. And the navigators, the crewmen who are at the con, are in office chairs with rolly wheels. Like that's what they have on the Starship bridge.
They wouldn't even let them use the ones for the show because they know these are too precious.
These are just office chairs, completely undecorated, not upscaled to the 24th century or anything.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, the next time this ship gets hit, they're just going to roll right across the bridge. I was like, wow. Okay. So that happened.
Last bits of news I have is if you're listening to this near when we're recording, for some reason, a bunch of the Star Trek stuff on disc is on sale on Amazon. If you are one who wants to get discs and likes to have the discs, the physical versions, they're on sale for some reason. You can get Strange New Worlds Season 2 for $20. Among other things, like
And that's on Blu-ray?
yeah, you can
Nice.
get the DVD versions too, but they're more expensive. I picked up Picard's.
No, the DVD would be cheaper than the Blu-ray.
You would think.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. I
Okay.
had the same reaction, like, really? And the Blu-ray for Picard sees all 3 seasons is like 45 or $50.
Wow.
So I grabbed that too.
Cool. Thanks
Uh-huh.
for the heads up.
And lastly,
Well, I love physical media because, as we know, Paramount Plus often just removes Star Trek from their own service.
yeah, it's the home of Star Trek, unless it's not.
Yeah. The Voyage Home.
Uh-huh. I is one who has gotten rid of or don't purchase much physical media anymore unless there's something very special about it. And for me, Star Trek is that something special.
That makes sense.
And lastly, the Roddenberry archive, which is a neat place, a thing on the YouTubes. They publish things through a channel called OTOY, OTOY, one word, OTOY, periodically Star Trek stuff. And it's really cool. And they just yesterday, as we're recording this, published a 13-minute short on Deep Space Nine, the actual like location of it, hosted by Armin Shimmerman, an entire CGI recreation of the promenade, and show like the Replomat, Quark's bar, Odo Security Office. He talks about how the Bajoran temple set all it had was the big Bajoran symbol, and when it actually like inside the temple, it was on an entirely different soundstage. And there's just a lot of fun things like that. And they talked about like this massive production and how Deep Space Nine was a major risk. It was the first Trek without Roddenberry, and they were sure fans were going to be cool with something that didn't have a hero ship, at least at the time, or where a hero ship just sits still,
Right.
and spun in circles. circles. So it was a major risk. And it's a neat 13 minutes. I highly recommend it.
I remember, this is a slight tangent, but I remember people having that concern. They're like, oh, it doesn't go anywhere. How exciting is it going to be? And I'm like, Cheers doesn't go anywhere. Night Court doesn't go anywhere. I was like,
Right.
why is that the necessary feature of a successful show? Most shows don't
Uh-huh.
go anywhere.
Right? Like the most we got on Night Court was going to someone's house, or
Right,
apartment kind of thing.
right. Like,
Went into their quarters. Okay, we do that already.
yeah, most places don't travel. It was weird. Anyway, shall we talk about Discovery?
Oh yeah, that's the thing we're here for. So yeah, we had. Oh, go ahead.
Well, before we start, I need to point out a very important date. So we're recording April 6th. Yesterday was Star Trek Day. The day before is when Discovery debuted. And that was April 4th, 2024. And that was the first time in Star Trek history that something had happened since October 14th, 1998. Do you know what that thing is?
Um.
It's not a movie.
Okay. Wait. I think I actually heard this. We are talking about. It wasn't. And Voyager launch that was already on the air at that point. In the interest of the viewer not listening to me talking through, because I would actually do that and have a fun time talking it through myself. What's the answer?
This Thursday, April 4th, 2024, was the first time in 26 years since season 5 of a Star Trek show premiered, that being Voyager.
Oofta. Man, we got short chain Enterprise to ruin that streak.
I don't blame Enterprise. I thought they should have kept going, but yeah,
Wow.
Enterprise didn't make it that far.
Wait. That was more years since between TOS and Next Gen. Or TOS and no, it was less. Anyway, that's not technically true either. But if we're gonna be seeing false stacks or false statistics and then editing them out, that can be one. All right. However, you do
Yeah.
not have to. I have no shame in being wrong.
But I'm
5
so glad.
seasons.
Yeah, I'm glad Discovery season has made it to season 5. I'm disappointed that it got canceled. But when they announced the news of the cancellation about a year ago, I went to ChatGPT trying to make some sense of this sad news. And I said, ChatGPT, write me a scene where in the universe of Star Trek, where it's explained why Discovery is being canceled from the perspective of a Ferengi. And it wrote me a scene, it wrote me a script. And then I said, okay, do it again, but from the perspective of a Cardassian, and then again from a Romulan. And I have all these scripts that it wrote. I lost them for a while. I recently refound them. And we're going to post them online at transporterlock.com so you can read why Discovery is being canceled from in-universe reasons.
I can't wait to read those.
I know even you haven't read them yet, so I hope you enjoy them. So season 5, they kicked it off with 2 episodes right off the bat. The first one being Red Directive and the other being Under the Twin Moons. They're going to be 10 episodes total running through May 30th. And then that's it. This will be the final season of Star Trek Discovery. So we're going to talk today about Red Directive and Under the Twin Moons.
Yeah, and I think the one that had the most activity would probably be Red Directive. Might as well start there. As we kind of get hints in this episode was setting us up for the season and telling us what each character's thing is going to be this season, or most of the characters anyway.
What their thing is going to be?
Yeah, what their thing like Stamets. He's sad he does not have a legacy. Saru is sad because he might be an ambassador. Daft Punk is sad because they don't have the thing. Tilly is teaching. It says Maul and Lack. They came when you first see them, they have the Daft Punk helmets on.
That's true. Okay.
Tilly is teaching and has a crush on a guy as awkward as her. And it's like that's that we're just setting things up for everyone's thing this season.
Yeah, and not only that, but just like every other Star Trek show, whether they have another season or whether they have a movie, they have to find a way to bring the band back together. Oh, Tilly went off to teach, but now she's back for one more mission. Oh, Book got sent to like I don't know, some sort of a penal colony, but now he's back for one special mission. And I don't know, like at the end of season 3, they sent Saru away to help that kid reacclimate to life on their Kelpian homeworld. And now he's back for one more mission. And so I find it hard to get emotionally invested with people leaving. Like there were a lot of sad goodbyes between Michael and Saru in these 2 episodes. And I'm like, we just did this a season and a half ago. Saru already left and he came back. Book and Tilly left and they are back. Worf went to Deep Space Nine, but kept coming back for all the TNG movies.
Uh-huh. So does it mean like you took that as they're trying to tug at your heartstrings, like in a way, like they might not come back? Like for me, it's just like, oh, this is what they're doing between seasons. I'm curious, like how do you take those scenes when they happen? Or do you take them as they are telling me this character might not come back? Like I'm asking you, like how do you see them when they happen before that just kept happening over and over again?
Back in the early 90s when Superman died, that was a big deal because no hero that big, as far as I know, had ever died in comics before. And we were like, how could they possibly do this? What are they going to do? And they brought him back. That was the plan all along. And so many superheroes have died since then and come back. I feel like writers have a hard time committing to difficult decisions. And so they were like, nope, that's the end of Tilly. Nope, that's the end of Book. Oh, we have another season? We better bring them back. I'm just like, I'd rather somebody die and stay dead or somebody go off and stay off.
Oh, that's interesting. That I see them as, yeah, this is just their off time until the next season. And maybe cynical, because I never once thought none of these characters were coming back or were not coming back.
See, well, it's not just an off-season thing for Tilly. It's only been a few months. Like this was supposed to be her full-time job.
Uh-huh.
And it was also supposed to set up the new Starfleet Academy show that's shooting this summer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I never thought she was coming back on Discovery. I thought she'd be back on Starfleet Academy.
Interesting. So we just had two different approaches to that. To me, I had no question she was going to be back in the show.
Yeah, I really thought she was gone.
Oh, so it's just interesting how we view television and we see things differently. It's like what happened with Strange New Worlds as well.
Yeah,
With,
we talked about that a little bit. I mean, we kind of always knew that number one was coming back, and also the Noonien Singh, right? I just thought they might be gone longer, but in the case of Discovery, I thought the characters were gone for good. And it's not just that we view things differently; it's also that I'm far more naive than you, Sabriel. I take people at their word.
Case in point, even here, my D&D campaign. We just had a campaign wrapped up on Wednesday, and I said, "All right, we're going to be doing a time jump. If you want, you can play the same characters, or you can make a new one. We'll figure out a way to get the band back together because they had their goodbyes." Like I said, it's up to you. And some are making new characters, some are bringing them back, and it's like, all right. But I told I can always bring the band back together. I have no problem doing that. So it's kind of like a similar thing here. All right, you said your goodbyes. I can get the band back together if you want to come back next season. Like, okay, we'll resign. Get me on that contract. I love the Star Trek residual money.
That's true. Everybody needs a job.
Okay.
So what is a red directive?
That is something that everybody in the universe seems to know, but not the viewer, and that's all that matters to me. That's something very important.
Even more so than like an Omega protocol?
We don't know. But when they said that and didn't answer, I mean, like, Ken's gonna ask me this. I said, and the answer is everyone in the show knows it's very important, and we're all we are left is, for once, Discovery doesn't explain something to the audience, like we're idiots, and I'm very okay with that.
Well, I think the name Red Directive was chosen for our benefit to mislead us, because we know that they're going after like an 800-year-old Romulan ship, and it's a red directive. Romulans, red matter.
Oh, that. But this happened before the whole red matter thing.
The progenitor stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the progenitors were found before red matter, but we don't know precisely what year this Romulan ship went missing. Just that it's like 800 years old or so. So that would put it after TNG.
Maybe.
I mean, the Romulan finding this stuff happened. It had to have happened after the chase.
Never even occurred to me. But we know about red matter. It was just existed.
I mean, red matter is a artificial construct that creates black holes. It's immensely destructive and can be weaponized so easily, as we saw in the 2009 movie. And so I could imagine that information about it has been suppressed. So if it got into the wrong hands, we could totally see that being a red directive, in my opinion.
Interesting. It never even occurred to me that it would tie into Star Trek 2009.
Did you have any hypothesis? Because red matter is in our universe. That's not the Kelvin universe. Did you have some other hypothesis as to what they were going to find?
No, I had no clue at all. The red directive, I think that was just the name of something. This is something very important. Everyone and I had like, okay, I just took it as word. I never thought that was tied to a code word like Omega Directive.
Interesting.
I just took it as this is a green directive. This is a red directive. Red directive in Star Trek is very bad or very important. And so, like, okay, they are all like, oh, and this is something that's not obviously not a secret like Omega Directive, because when that happened, everyone's like, Captain, we're being hacked. And Janeway's like, no, we're not. I just remembered an episode of Next Generation where the speed limit was broken, and we're going to tie that in. And we didn't see that episode, Captain. And here everyone's like, oh, red directive. That sounds very important. And they know it. So to me, it didn't seem like any kind of secret thing.
Okay. So I sort of jumped the gun because it's not until episode 2 that we find out that the MacGuffin, I guess, of this season is, that's probably not the right word, the progenitors. What do you think about making that the tie-in?
I think that's so cool. I hadn't thought about the chase in a long time. I mean, I have thought about the concepts of the chase and how like every humanoid species is based on their work. And I was like, that's just a neat concept. And I've thought about that before, but nothing really deep. It's just like that just jumped in my head. And I think that's really cool. And they love it how they tied this book into Next Gen and Picard with the puzzle box. And we may as well talk about both episodes at the same time because they're very
I agree.
Together. The puzzle box is from season 1 Picard, and not the same one, but the concept. And they bring up things about Romulans that we found about then too. Got ahead of myself, but I thought it was a fun way to tie in things we've learned about the Star Trek universe in Picard to the chase with the progenitors, and pulling that old episode back to this concept of like there is still ancient technology out there that could cause havoc 1,000 years later. And I think that's a cool concept and fun. That exists all the time, but now as a race we know. There we go.
Last month I watched the movie Annihilation with Natalie Portman, and it was one of the few instances in Hollywood science fiction where we have an alien race that is non-humanoid and doesn't even think like us. Like, we don't understand how this thing views or interacts with the world. It's, in a very literal sense, alien to us, which is very different from Star Trek, where everything is humanoid. And I was talking with my friend Neil, who has been on this show, and he said, like, it was a nice change because on Star Trek, everything is just like us. And I said, yeah, and there's a reason for that. And I pulled up on YouTube the ending scenes from The Chase. So I was watching that episode, or the end of it, less than a month ago.
That's fun.
Kind of like how you and I rewatched that old TOS episode, The Balance of Terror, and then they remade it for SNW. So I was just thinking about The Chase the other week. I was like, oh, and here it is. And when they pulled up the old picture, the frame from like, oh, this famous Romulan scientist. And I was like, even though it was cropped, I'm like, that's The Chase. Even though it's just these 4 Romulans standing in the background, I was like, I know exactly what scene that is. I am a little disappointed though, because, well, for 2 reasons. One, the progenitors had a very positive intent. Like, when they explored the world, the universe, the sector, the galaxy, they found themselves alone, and that made them sad. So they created life and seeded the clues in a way that would require everybody to come together. And like, that's a very positive and optimistic view of the future, which is what Star Trek is always supposed to be. And now that intent of theirs is being weaponized, or so we assume.
Yeah, we got that MacGuffin early on, so something probably different is going on.
I mean, in some ways, this feels very much like The Chase. They need to rush around and find these 5 distinct pieces and put them together. So I hope, I don't know what they're going to find when they're done. A friend of mine stopped watching Discovery because every single season was literally universe shattering, and that level of anxiety was not sustainable. And so it would be nice to see something different at the end of this season.
That's what there was talk of that being the case here, but also like, so I think from the community, not from like spoilers, It's like we need a season of this, and I think this is going to be weaponized is a red herring. I don't know to what end, but like Discovery has gone down this well 4 seasons in a row now. Are we really going to do it a 5th season when the community is like, again?
Well,
I don't think it's going to be a galaxy-ending threat.
well, also the power that the progenitors use to seed the universe, if I recall correctly, they did that 4.5 billion years ago. So whoever finds this technology is not going to get a quick return on that investment.
Yeah, it's like a Genesis 2, like, or Genesis 3 device.
Funny you say that. I said I was disappointed for 2 reasons. That's the second one, the Genesis device. We've seen it in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. We've seen it in season 4 finale of Lower Decks. We've seen it in season 3 of Picard. So this technology to create entire planets and maybe not fauna, but at least flora exists. So compared to creating a planet in a matter of days, the ability to create sentient life in 4 billion years seems pretty tame.
Yeah, I don't think this is we're gonna kill everyone. We're gonna kill life as we know it, Jim. I don't think so. We can go if we want to do that. We can go talk to the C4 or C5, whatever the aliens out there.
Oh yeah.
And have them. Hey, you want to just go back and mine again? We're cool with it now.
Although this does mean that you remember how shocked I was that changelings appeared in season 3 of Picard. Spoiler. Here they are in Discovery 2. The same actor. So for those who don't know, the same actor plays the progenitor and the female changeling.
Yes. The form of like the changelings and the progenitor, very similar vibes in makeup.
Yes.
And same with the sphere builders too, oddly enough.
Oh,
Very
interesting.
similar vibes in Enterprise.
I hadn't thought of that.
Like I don't think they're related, but like.
Although doesn't this canonize their name as the progenitors? I don't think that was.
No, here, David Cronenberg just said we call them the progenitors, so you can take that part you want.
But I don't think they've ever been called that in anything else.
No, so you can call them what they apparently they gave them a name here.
Well, it's interesting because I think they were called that non-canonically before this episode.
I don't remember.
But I went into the memory alpha. I clicked on the discussion page, and there was a lot of talk about them being called progenitors, but I couldn't find a source for that. And all the comments were dated. The comments are years old, talking about progenitors, this, progenitors, that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So that's cool if that's true.
I mean, there were a lot of theories and rumors like, oh, these are the same people from TNG season 1, episode 17 that created the computer that kidnapped all those children. Or this is the same people from the preservers in TOS. And these are the same people as the founders. And they're like, no, and also no. But I can't figure out where the name progenitors came from. I even looked in memory beta. I didn't have any luck.
Interesting.
Another tie-in to Picard, and I'm definitely jumping around here, is Fred.
Yeah, that's another great connection there. We got one of the synthetics back.
Now, I've only seen Picard season 1 once, and I don't want to go back to it, but remind me, did the synths look like Data?
They were not exactly, they were very close. They had the skin color, if I recall correctly. And the eyes. I think that was, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, because Fred had same hair color and style, same eye color, same skin color, all as Data. And I'm like, if this is not a Noonian type synth, then I don't know what they're going for here. So I'm glad that they named Altoon specifically.
They had, but I pulled up an image. They had a skin color, but they didn't have the hair, basically.
Okay.
And the eyes are the same. So yeah, they were mimicking what Picard introduced.
Interesting.
As what TNG introduced.
And he was 600 plus years old.
Yeah.
I was surprised at how poorly he negotiated that potential sale. He said 3 bars of latinum. First of all, 1,000 years of inflation. It's got to be worth more than that. And second of all, he had read the diary and thus memorized it. He could have just said, I'm not interested in this purchase. Take your wares elsewhere. Because he already had what he needed.
Was that? But he liked to collect things. So he wanted to have it. And he was scamming them hard.
Very hard. Yeah.
Maybe he was giving them the price of a stem bolt, self-sealing stem bolt.
I have that in my note. Self-sealing stem bolts. I was so happy to see those. Yeah, so they still look like Data. He's 600 years old. Now he's dead, which is disappointing. And they said that they'd like, oh, we haven't seen a synth be anxious in 20 years or so. So they clearly have some sort of emotions. They are more prolific than just data, which is neat. And they were being sold those items by Locke and what's her name?
Maul.
Locke and Maul.
I think of Richard Maul from Night Court, oddly enough, way to tie that back around. So I think that's how I memorize her name.
I see no resemblance.
Oh, I didn't say anything about resemblance at all. I didn't say anything about that. I just know the last name.
Right. But I don't know if that would help me because, like, looking at her, I'm not going to think, who's that Night Court actor that she. Harry? No. Anyway, Locke, they said that they don't know his race. Did you have any initial impressions when you saw him?
Thought was Riemann.
Yes, exactly.
Like, but they would know that even if they have data that can tell them, hey, we have a scientist that's 800 years old who's dead. Like, so the Riemanns aren't a mystery to them, even if they somehow don't exist anymore. So like, that's something new, which is just like, okay, cool.
I was very surprised that he's not Riemann because when he took off his mask, I thought, oh, very clearly. And since this is a Romulan ship, that seems a pretty obvious tie-in. But he's not Riemann. Just like our main character from Prodigy, he's unknown.
Yeah, so maybe he is still, and for some reason we're gonna find out the Romulans have been hiding the secret of the Riemanns all this time, and then it's been long forgotten. But I don't think it's gonna be it.
Actually, you just remind me of something I meant to bring up. The secret of the progenitors apparently was also not disseminated widely upon its discovery in TNG. I thought it would have been.
You scare people and you find out the reality of something sometimes. I can see why not. I can imagine reasons why not. People are not always enlightened when they find out the reality of things.
I totally agree that's the nature of the world you and I currently live in. I just thought Star Trek was a little bit more open, and especially since this isn't necessarily a Starfleet secret. It was discovered by 4 alien races simultaneously. I thought word would get out.
I mean, it's plausible it gets out. I can picture either way. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
But you have a secret science organization that's paramilitary, but we pretend we're not. We have the super secretive Romulans who will kill you if you find out what they ate this morning for breakfast without them telling you. You have the Cardassians who immediately went to war after this and tried to take over the quadrant. And then who are the other ones? The fourth race.
Klingon?
Was it who else? Klingon, was it Klingons there too?
Yep.
And the Klingons like, well, the warrior caste has taken over that for a long time, and we don't really see much of the science. So I can see why it didn't get out too.
They should have had somebody from the lawyer cast on that mission.
There you go. Or the Hack the Planet cast.
That's right. The oft overlooked casts.
Like basically, like for everything that like seems plausible, I can always come up with a way. Like, yeah, but it's Star Trek. They don't have the ideals we do. So,
and that's valuable because as hard as I find it is to believe that this progenitor's backstory was kept a secret, I have to believe it because that's what Star Trek is telling me happened.
It made it the truth.
Right. Once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. Sherlock Holmes.
Yes. Also think of it this way. It's 100 years. There are so many facts, even in our world history, that have been lost to time that no one will know. People who were at the signing of the Declaration of Independence, people who were at the signing, people who had these memories of things that went, maybe wrote it in diaries. And those family didn't look through diaries. They just tossed it away. Data doesn't last forever, even in our world. So this could have spread a bit and then just gone again.
So you actually bring up a really good point. You just remind me of an episode of The Orville where it was sort of like the Voyager episode that I think was called Blink, where the universe time goes much quickly. Much quickly. Oh my gosh. I know how to talk.
Words is hard. I know.
Yeah. So there was an episode like that on The Orville where Commander Kelly Grayson went down the planet, interacted with a small part of the population and left. And she was perceived to be a goddess. And entire religions and cultures sprung up around them. And so she went back down there like 1,000 of their years later and said, no, look, it's just a little healing tricorder I have. Here, you can use it. Here, you heal your friend. See, anybody can do it. I'm not a god. We're just really advanced with machines. And then she left. And the person she demonstrated to 2 priests. And as soon as she left, one priest immediately turns and kills the other. So now there's only one person who knows this, and he's the surviving priest, and he keeps it a secret because he knows that if he lets this knowledge out, he will lose his position of power in this religious culture. And he wants power. So, yes, from that perspective, I can see how, even though I don't know the role of religion in Starfleet, I can see how some people might not want this information out there.
Yeah. So Locke and Maul,
Yeah.
we don't know their motives yet, which is interesting. We have a connection to book. Well, a
Yep.
book.
Right.
That's interesting.
Cleveland Book the Fourth.
Oh, go ahead. Yes. So like, I was like, okay, I rewatched the first episode this morning. I didn't have time to do the second one before we record. And because they're like trying to figure out what are their motivations. And talking about the everyone Starfleet's like, they're gonna kill us all or something like that. And like I see them in their Daft Punk gear on the Romulan ship. Locke is like, we got ourselves stealing stem bolts in our isolinear chip. Let's get out of here and just go have a vacation. And she's like, and I wrote down the quote, do you want the pebbles or the mountain? And so like, I don't think like they just want the money, or they wanted the money until they find out what's information in there. Like we still don't know information. Discovery's going to drag this out for a while, as Discovery does. Doctor Evil plans do not seem like in their idea at all.
What I think, and I'm making this up just based on what you just said, is Book said that these are people who love cliff diving, metaphorically. They love the rush. And I think, based on the quote you just shared about Pebbles and Mountains, that Maul, named after Richard Maul from Night Court, damn, it works, is more of a cliff diver than her partner. And I think the way he was looking at her, the way when they were holodecking or whatever with Book, I think she is going to take too big a risk and he is going to back down in order to save her life. Or he's going to have to ask Starfleet for help saving her because she will have gotten herself into a situation she can't get out of.
100% agree. 100%. And then also like Shepard is a book, or I keep thinking,
it's not Firefly.
I keep doing it. Why couldn't they name him like dictionary or something like that? Anyway, Kindle, like Cleveland Kindle. Alliteration.
Don't do that when I'm drinking.
Or even Nook. Nook was right there. Anyway, shoot, I was getting off my idea. Okay, so he's like, oh, he's the daughter of the guy I took the name from. Like, oh, please don't have like a daddy issues. Like, is she trying to make a name for herself like her dad, which feels too obvious? Or she's trying to fix her dad's legacy or something like that. I'm like, oh, please don't be that. It can be that, and maybe they can make it interesting, but I just hope they don't go with daddy issues.
I don't think it's that, because she's not biologically her Cleveland Book's daughter. She was like
the original.
I inferred, and maybe I was incorrect because I only watched episode once, that she had a mentor-mentee relationship similar to Cleveland Book did. Our book.
I could be wrong. Like I said, I only got a chance to watch it once. No. She was the daughter. She did that is with Book, but remember, Book took his name from someone else.
Right, I know that.
And I thought he said that she was his daughter.
I thought she was like maybe a foster kid, like an adopted. No.
Oh, I mean, I can be 100% wrong.
Yeah, I'm trying to look her up now in Maul. Here we go.
Oh, I tried looking at Memory Alpha, but no one has written the synopsis of that portion of the episode yet.
She was the daughter of the fourth individual to hold the name Cleveland Booker, according to Memory Alpha. Okay, so I was wrong. It also says no relation to Richard Maul.
Weird.
Yeah.
Oh, I just put that in there. No.
Oh, okay. Sure. And Locke, L-A-K. Unknown race. Interesting. So I'm just looking at the Memory Alpha entry for the actor who plays Locke. He played a voice in Star Trek Resurgence, the video game. He was in an episode of the first season of Star Trek Discovery. He was in the episode Context is for Kings. Interesting. Yeah, he looks like he played a human convict.
Huh.
So he's been on the show before. Interesting.
Well, there we know who he is now.
And now I'm wondering if Maul has been on the show before. This is the sort of research that our audience loves listening to us do in real time. No, she is seemingly new to Star Trek. And of course, Memory Alpha, they love to list here are all the other shows that they have done with other Star Trek actors, like Fringe and Caprica and Fargo and 12 Monkeys. But as far as I know, this is her first time in Star Trek.
Right on.
Yeah.
So the premise of the season, basically, we got to go get our guff and before Locke and Maul do, which is basically one of my complaints of Discovery, and it stands out and takes me out of the episode for a moment when it happens. Especially happens in episode 2 here under the Twin Moons a lot, where they constantly repeat for the audience why we are doing the thing the scene is talking about, repeating the exposition. So if you watch Under the Twin Moons again, you're basically going to have this series of events. Michael Burnham, we need to find the next clue on the planet. They beam down to the planet. Saru, remember, we're here to find the next clue. And then they're being chased around, and they talk to Discovery, like, Discovery, things are happening to stop us from finding the next clue. Help, we need that clue. And then when they finally get there and they're trying to figure things out, and they're moving the huge pillar, and Tilly's like, Captain, we need to beam you back. And Burnham's like, not yet, Tilly. I'm here to find the next clue. I'm like, it's constant. And when you listen for it or watch for it, you are constantly being told what the scene is about. And I hate that. It is treating me like I'm an idiot. And that's why I appreciated the Red Directive thing of not telling us, because it's this cool thing. Now, like, with the body language, everyone there knows about it. I don't. And that's all I need to know. But Void or Discovery is so bad about this. Like, they do it a bit in other shows. This is something that happens in network television a lot. Especially if you watch the show Chuck, you will see it all the time. But that's shows where the viewer is expected to just be through channels and stop and pick up wherever. So they constantly repeat what the episode is about when the episode's happening. That's not Discovery. We're all here to watch the show. No one is slipping through the streaming thing like, oh, I'm just going to randomly stop in this episode, see what's going on. Like that. They're treating it like it's a syndicated TV show on network television, and it's not, and I hate it. There's my rant.
I had not noticed that. I can totally see how it could be unnecessary. I'm also thinking about what are some scenarios in which it could be necessary, because I've had friends walk into the room while I'm watching Star Trek and they say, "What's this?" And they sit down and join us. And one person actually ended up joining this show for an episode because they got into Star Trek exactly that way. Another reason might be there are times that I'm listening to video game podcasts and they're talking for like 20 minutes about one video game and then another 20 minutes about another video game, and they keep moving. And sometimes I'm like, I listen to podcasts mostly while I'm driving. Sometimes my attention is on the road and I come back to the podcast. I'm like, what video game are you talking about? And I've been listening in the background, but I forget, like, what game is this? It sounds really cool.
100% agree in that scenario.
I know many people, probably yourself included, are willing and able to multitask while watching a show. Like, they have their phones open, they're texting with their friends. I don't do that. Like, when I'm watching a show, notifications are turned off on everything else, and I am watching the show. Some people watch a show in the background while playing a video game. All the more power to them. I am no way doing that. But if you are somebody who does that, maybe you need those reminders, especially with this TikTok attention span where everything changes every 10 seconds.
Brought up TikTok as a conversation I was having with my friend yesterday. You bring up a very good point about because people are just ditzing around on their phone. Clean that language up. Because it was pointed out, I have not watched Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix yet, and I have not watched the Fallout trailer for the new show yet. So I cannot confirm. I'm just taking on what was told to me as a story. So there is apparently something going around where someone's like watching Avatar: Last Airbender, and they are watching like something feels off about the CGI. Not that it's bad, not that it's dark. Something is just off when I'm watching this. And they're talking about it with a coworker in their video game place. That's what it was. The idea is because the reason why it looks so funny is all the action happens at the center of the screen, never happens to the side anymore. And they're like, watch the Fallout trailer and you'll see it there too. All the action is right in the center, doesn't happen on the sides. And the reason for that is because of TikTok and YouTube Shorts, so you can clip it and put it online. And I can absolutely see why this is why we're treating me like an idiot, because people are just people aren't paying attention. You have given me a plausible explanation of why they do it, and I I can understand. I'm not mad at people for doing that when they want it, but I takes me out of the show in this new era of television writing when I do it. There we go. There's my rant.
TikTok and YouTube want us to turn our televisions on their sides.
Yeah. Yeah. So that you explained you gave me a plausible reason for why it happens. And
Doesn't make it okay or less
Right.
frustrating for people like you and me,
But
but at least we know why.
anyway, so yeah, remember we gotta get the next clue.
Do we? Oh, okay.
But I do appreciate the Indiana Jones thing here this season so far. We gotta go get the MacGuffin so we can get a bigger MacGuffin. I enjoy the chase, no pun intended. But other characters here are being introduced or having things like Stamets, like I mentioned. He opens with they're at a party. He's sad because they're shutting down the spore drive technology research. Not shutting down Discovery, just the program, as trying to add it to other ships. They're going with the Vulcan solution to the Pathfinder, which sounds like just super transwarp. And he's sad that he doesn't have a legacy. He even thinks about Alton Soong. Oh, we still remember his name all these years later. He's sad he's legacy. He wants to be remembered. And that's his trial this season is going to be that. Saru is like
Getting married.
which Tallinn, right? That's her name.
Sure. Let's go with that.
that
No, that's a character from Lower Decks.
She is hilarious in the Vulcan way. Like when they're dancing, she's like, "What's on your? Are you going to tell me what's going on, or do I have to give you a mind meld?" And like that's her telling a joke, which is great. But seeing him, like we've seen this character want to be a captain so badly and trying to model himself after captains and leaders, and like now he's being asked to to resign, basically. That's gonna be a path for him. But they're getting married now. That's awesome. Or the version of it.
It never occurred to me that ambassadors are not Starfleet personnel.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's unfortunate that he would have to resign. I presume that resignations are not permanent, and that if he resigns from being an ambassador, he can go back into Starfleet without losing his rank.
Yeah, I presume that too.
Cool.
But it means no longer being on the field, no longer seeing the stars. He got to give up this thing he worked so hard for.
That's what got him off the planet in the first time. Yeah.
So I could see it as a difficult decision in that regard, not just Serena.
But given his love for his Vulcan lady, spending more time with her seems like a good thing. Yeah.
We've got Tilly doing some having trouble getting cadets to really just meld together.
Mm-hmm. She just wants to crush them all onto an ice planet.
I was like, I can't do this, can I?
Can I?
Adira.
Yeah, I'm glad they mentioned Gray or Blue. Gray.
Blue is the actor.
Right. Sorry.
I almost did the same thing. So,
but Gray is right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad they mentioned Gray because it seemed like bringing Gray back to life was a big issue in a previous season, and now they're like, oh, they're just somewhere else.
I mean, they are a secondary character, so I'm guessing they're going to come back at some point.
I hope so, because I like them. I saw them at Dragon Con, and they're cool.
They seem so cool in all the interviews.
And also Tal being like, I love Gray, and this is the longest I've been away from them, and I like who I am. Yeah, that's a really important relationship dynamic to acknowledge, is that very often you subsume aspects of yourself to accommodate your partner, and that's not long-term sustainable. And you can still be with your partner and be yourself, and that's a tricky balancing act that not everybody learns.
Yeah. And so it just like, yeah, it's the first time they've been away from their partner in how long. So it's going to be an interesting journey for them as well. I can't wait to see how that goes. Like, are they going to be together by the end? We don't know. Dr. Culber doesn't seem to have much of a seasonal thing yet.
Yeah, he used to be so stressed trying to take on the medical and psychological needs of the rest of the crew without attending to his own. And
I think he's going to be support for Stamets this season. No, I think he's going to be more for his family, for Paul and Adira.
I really like the line he had with Book where he said, "How are you doing?" And Book's like, "Oh, I've been working with refugees." And Culber cut him off and said, "That's what you're doing. I want to know how you're doing."
Guilty as charged on that kind of deflection many times.
I don't know. If somebody deflected me in that way, I don't know that I would have even noticed. And now I will. And I think that's a good thing.
It is a sign that there's something they just don't want to talk about too. Or they are being very careful about who they're telling. I mean, it could be many things, but yeah, That is a strategy I have employed many times. Like, I just don't want to talk about it. But here's something that I do find interesting. I would rather talk about.
Were you doing it consciously?
I would say not always.
Hmm.
Actually, it's probably more such an instant thought. I didn't think about it. It's more of the brain was like, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Here's something that is more interesting, or is something that is not going to continue talking about that thing.
There's one character I would like to skip to.
Well, is it Jim Raynor?
Captain of the USS Antares.
Yeah, I love Captain Raynor. That's what I was getting to.
I want to start with probably the least interesting thing about him.
Uh-huh.
Since we were talking about Locke earlier, I have the same question about this guy. What do you think his species is?
Oh, I went and remembered it. It was one on DS9 in one episode.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't have remembered it at all until internet told me. It is Calirun. It was the one with the harvester virus in like season 1 or 2.
Oh gosh.
I wouldn't have remembered that at all. I was trying to figure it out.
When I pull up USS Antares in Memory Alpha, it pulls up a ship from DS9, which is not the Antares I'm looking for. Interesting. There have been others.
Yeah, there was one in the original series too, I think, as well.
Here we go. Let's see. Raynor. There he is. And there he is. Oh yeah, just what you said, Kellerun. And now I'm looking up Kellerun and
he's also part Cylon.
Part what?
Part Cylon. He was one of the Cylons in Battlestar Galactica relaunch.
When you said part Cylon, I'm like, that's the wrong universe. What are you talking about? It was interesting because in the opening credits for Discovery, which probably have so many clues we haven't figured out yet to where the season is going, because they always do that, as well as in Picard, his name was in like top billing. And I Googled this name to figure out who he was. And I was like, oh, that's the captain of the Antares. Okay. And I was like, okay, he played a big role in the first episode, maybe the second one. And when they got to the end of the second episode and they demonstrated to us how and why he's going to be a major character in the rest of the season, I did not see that coming from a mile away. That is like my favorite moment in the first 2 episodes. It's the only moment I was truly, truly surprised.
That's awesome. I didn't see it coming. I didn't see who was going to be number 1. It just, for whatever reason, did not occur to me that he was an option. They teased like Shepherd Book, and I'm like, or not Shepherd Book, Cleveland Book.
Again.
I'm like, that makes no sense. I was like angry.
I mean, they hinted at in a previous season that Book would look good in a Starfleet uniform. And then Saru said, oh yeah, he'd be a good first officer. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting direction. Sort of like the Orville having a couple as the first and second officers. And then Michael was talking to Admiral Vance, and Admiral Vance said he's a good officer. And Michael had this look on her face. And then it cuts to her talking to him. And I still didn't see it coming. I did not see it coming. And she says, I want you to be my number 1. So obviously like, yeah, maybe it should have been, but like this is a demotion for him. He's going from captain for like 30 years, or at least an officer for 30 years, down to first officer.
I would say it's demotion. Spock and Kirk were both captains on Enterprise. And it's not a demotion. It's just I'm following someone else's orders, but I'm gonna be, if you look at no longer being command of a starship as a demotion, yes, but he lost his rank. Okay.
And also there is the fact that at the end of the voyage home, Kirk and Spock were demoted, especially Kirk. He's like, instead of a desk job as an admiral, we're gonna punish you by making you captain of the Enterprise. And he's like, darn.
Yeah, so don't see it as a demotion. He still gets to keep doing what he's doing. We don't know how much he wanted to be captain. Maybe he didn't. He just was, because I'm here to get the job done and stopping these couriers. So
you like him. Tell me why.
He's got a lot of the Shaw energy. He's got that snark. He's got I'm going to stand up to the Admiral's mentality. Captain Shaw from Picard season 3. He's just got a charm about him that I find endearing in his like when he when on the desert planet Burnham and Booker talking about their relationship, and he just beams in, and just that sort of like, I'm interrupting something.
I love it.
Are we done here? Are we good? And And they're like, nope, nope, nope. And they fly away and he just laughs. I just find that interesting and fun. I like that mentality of someone who is bucking the normal Starfleet, yes, sir. Trying to and still doing their job. I get a kick out of the trope.
Yeah, and I loved this is less about the character, but more about the scene since we're on the desert planet. I loved the ships joining their shields and coming down to the planet. Like I had that thought when they were talking about how to stop this landslide. I was like,
I did too. I was like, I saw this a mile away.
yeah, like I wasn't sure they were actually going to do it, but I definitely had the idea like that if I was in that position, I think that could work. And they did, just like at the end of Picard season 3, they joined their shields, which we've seen before. We rarely see Starfleet ships in atmosphere, but that was cool that they just like wedged themselves into the sand and they must have still had some impulse engines going because they didn't then fall flat onto the surface. But yeah, I really liked that. That was neat.
That was a lot of fun. I'm finally getting used to this weird thing where the nacelles aren't attached.
Were they in that scene?
No. And it's just like the future tech. It's just weird to me when still finally getting used to it, or even the courier ship or book ship reshapes. It's like, okay, finally getting used to this concept of where we don't need to attach it for some reason.
There were some interesting shots in this episode. For example, one where they're in the cargo bay looking out into space, and we can see what it looks like from that perspective when they do a spore jump.
I was so happy to see that. I wrote that in my notes. I mean, we have not seen that somehow in 5 years. And like, wow, I hadn't noticed we hadn't seen that. And it's so cool. We always see, they always just zoom out of the ship and do the cool effect where and pizza cutter goes and then they just spin. Seeing that from a window.
I think there was one episode where we saw it from like a fixed perspective on the hull and like the universe spun around the ship instead of the ship spinning.
Around it.
Yeah, but an interior view, I don't remember seeing that before.
That was so cool. All I can think of is when I see the cargo bay, I love that they keep the door open, but internet hates it. Like, to me, it's like, okay, it's cool, whatever. I think it's a fun effect, and internet hates it, so I'm glad they keep doing it just to rub it in their faces.
I mean, even if there were a hull breach, the shield immediately applies. So why not just start there?
Yeah, like, it's cool. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
I think it's such a fun little thing. Okay, cool. All right. And if power's gone, like, all right, well, we're already in a bad situation.
Yeah. There are two things I want to mention from the beginning of the first episode. One is the Infinity Room. So they have this little figure 8.
Oh, yes.
I don't understand what that figure 8 thing is. It doesn't seem to be a transporter because it shows up again later and it didn't have any effect. It was just handed to somebody. So what is this thing? Do you know?
I don't. I was even as you're talking here, I didn't have it. I thought maybe it is the key that allows you into the Infinity Room because he says like, "I'm gonna need that back," and takes it back. Hypothesis. I have not thought any further into that, but like maybe that's it. Into our white room.
Maybe Infinity Room.
Yeah. I mean, it's a cool little visual effect for the viewer. We're like, oh, we are going now. Now we know what we do here. We're going somewhere important. Or secret, I guess. Or we had the ability to access secret rooms. So maybe it'll be like a Chekhov's infinity symbol in the future. Where this is where we're gonna hide.
Oh, interesting. It's sort of like the Janet space or whatever.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. The other thing I want to mention is, and this is something we rarely see, in my opinion, in Star Trek. The only example I can think of off the top of my head is the TNG episode Cause and Effect with Kelsey Grammer. The in media res opening to this episode, where we are mid-action, we don't know how we got here, and we find out later. What did you think of the use of that technique in this episode?
Watching it, like, I was like, what happens? I think, okay. And then watching it a second time, I'm like, I was actually questioning, and I haven't answered it yet myself. Like, does this actually do anything for the episode? I think story-wise, not at all. Unless they do it again for some reason in the future. So far, story-wise, it didn't do anything other than just try to get viewers interested in a season as a bam, things are happening. And I like Amy Res as a storytelling device. I just don't know if it did anything for the episode in the long run. How about you?
I mean, as a device, I think it can be used very well. One of my favorite role-playing games ever is Dragon Quest VIII, and it did it. Dragon Quest XI did not, and I found it a very boring opening. So it varies. As for this episode, I was lukewarm to it when Byrne was saying, "Ooh, I didn't expect this when I woke up this morning. Never a dull moment or whatever." And I was like, "Well, you're a Starfleet officer. You should expect this stuff."
Weird is part of the job.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like watching the scene a second time later with context, and to be clear, I'm talking about in a single viewing of the episode. I didn't really feel like it added much. Like I inferred everything I needed to the first time I saw it. She's trying to, destroy the ship's engines from the outside while it's in warp. Okay. Now that I know how she got there, it doesn't really change my viewing of what she's doing.
Yeah, yeah. It didn't add anything to it at all. Like the cool context. All the previews that we saw for Discovery season 5 were from the extended version of that scene with the Rainer there. So like all the previews for the whole season were 1 minute clip or whatever, minute and a half, however that long scene was.
I didn't watch any of the trailers, but I definitely saw stills of them riding those dirt bikes.
Oh no. I specifically said like the minute or a half or so preview of the season they showed like from Comic-Con or whatever like that. It was just the opening scene basically. I'm like, oh. So this really isn't a spoiler. I mean, I appreciate like all the scenes they showed us already. Almost all of them were from the first episode. Like, oh, okay. Well, it didn't spoil anything because I saw it all already.
Yeah, maybe I'll go back and watch the trailers now since I haven't before.
Like there are further episodes and they have multiple seasons, so I would not if you are very careful about that. Okay. Long-term hypotheses from me in the season. I thought we were going to have something to do with Iconians. I didn't think about progenitors at all. When I had seen the teaser before and it showed the puzzle box, I didn't recognize it at all as a Romulan thing. In the teasers, like a few months ago, I thought it was like, Iconians. That's something we haven't touched back on, and the chase never occurred to me. So maybe we'll see some Iconians at some point, which would be cool. Iconians are the mega empire from a bajillion years ago who were in the galaxy. We saw them in DS9 and TNG, and the Star Trek MMO.
And there were a lot of novels, like Demons of Wind and Air, I think.
Yeah.
Because in the novels, which I realize are not canon, and also I didn't read them, the Iconians show back up after a million years and say, "Hey, we have this technology and it's for sale. Who wants it?"
Oh.
And of course, that throws the whole quadrant into disarray because everybody wants it.
Of course. Yeah, my hypothesis, I still don't know what's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be galactic threat like we have been getting. And I had guessed Iconians. Now maybe they'll show up as a one episode. Like, our next clue is going to be on a planet with an Iconian teleportation device or something like that. I mean, maybe.
I wish they were going back to Beta Z instead of Trill because we've seen Trill already.
No, we haven't actually seen Beta Z, have we?
We had 3 Beta Zs on Strange New Worlds.
But I don't think we've been Beta Z.
No, we haven't.
Or any meaningful scene. Like I can picture. I don't remember the episode. Like, did they go to the planet and like show them like having drinks on a balcony or something?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, like I can picture that in my head, even if they didn't do it. But nothing meaningful. Like we've seen more of Orion than Beta Z now.
Yeah, it's true. I don't have any predictions for this season. I don't know where it's going. It's the 5th and final season.
Oh, we didn't talk about Michael and Book. They weren't talking to each other, and they both thought the other ones should be leading the conversation. We talked about all the other characters in their season-long arc, but we didn't talk about those two. But they also didn't really give us much. It's like, I thought you should have reached out to me first, and I thought you should have reached out to me first. Are we done?
I don't know how to be around you anymore. So
yeah, I mean, you betrayed all our ideals to go hang out with a guy who would have been a much better villain if they wrote him better. But
they ended season 4 like on good terms. At the beginning of season, as you know, I always skip the recaps because it tells me what's going to be important. I don't want to know that. That's a spoiler. But I watched the season 4 recap at the beginning of season 5, and it had them like partying on good terms. Like they didn't say
So,
goodbye. It was more like see you later. And now they're not friendly with each other anymore. It's weird.
or at least they thought, well, I thought you were gonna. Oh my God, I'm not gonna go into it. There was someone in my life who was like, I thought you would be the one to reach out because we didn't have a good. You would be the one to reach out, and like,
Yeah,
but we got to see Grudge again. So hey, and a cool little mouse toy.
that's right. That's
I
all
want
we
to see
really
where that
need.
goes for the rest of the season.
That's fine. That's my prediction for the season. We're gonna see more Grudge. Anything
That's
else?
all I got. That's all I got. I'm sure I'll.
We've been chatting for like an hour and a half.
I realized we forgot to talk about Michelle Yeoh's Section 31 movie. It is done, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're doing a movie, not a TV series, because she went and did Everything Everywhere All at Once and is now very popular and in demand, but she still wanted to do a movie or something. So it's a
Cool.
made for TV movie, which will be
Yeah.
like 1.5 episodes of any other Star Trek in length.
More Michelle Yeoh is all cool with me.
That's true. It's better than nothing.
As for the next episodes, all right, cool. Got a season with a bunch of MacGuffin searching.
Yeah, and you and I are going to figure out a recording schedule. Historically, we've done like 2 or 3 episodes at a time. We'll see if that works. But Transporter Lock is back on the air through May 30th at least. We are also going to see season 5 of Lower Decks later this year,
Cool.
and probably a season 3 of Strange New Worlds at some point, since season 2 ended on a cliffhanger. But of course, with the recent writers and actors strike, everything is a little delayed. No more Picard, no more Discovery. They're starting the Starfleet Academy show, which is good. And you just mentioned the Section 31 movie, presumably at the home for Paramount. Prodigy season 2 is going to air on Netflix. I don't know when.
Or France.
Or what?
Oh, you didn't hear about that. Someplace in France started airing episodes of Prodigy season 2 early was a miscommunication.
Whoops.
Yep.
Okay. I guess there are spoilers on the web then.
I have no idea. I haven't looked.
And you can check out our website, transporterlock.com, for ChatGPT produced scripts for why Discovery is being canceled.
Yeah, I can't wait to check this out.
All right. Until next time.
Hit it.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on iTunes and keep your hailing frequencies open by following us on Twitter @TransporterLock or subscribing to our podcast and email newsletter at transporterlock.com.